Hi, I'm Terry Murphy from Realty Times Women in Business and Women in Real Estate. And our guests today are superstars Christy Buck and Samantha Knorr from Infinity Real Estate Group in Pearland, Texas. Christy has gone from a rise from being a dining room table realtor to having a $2 million building with literally a staff of over 25 people. And she's done that because she was smart enough to get a helper that really understands the business, who went from a simple admin to an operational chief manager. So I want you to welcome Samantha Knorr. Samantha, say hello.
Hi, Terry.
How did Christy Buck know that you could organize things down to the frog's hair? How did she know that when you first started working together?
So when I very first started with Christy, I actually knew nothing about real estate. I was only 19 at the time, and the typical, I promise I'm a quick learner, give me a try. And so we started out that way, and little by little she would just get me to try to figure things out on my own. I always remember her saying, if I was in Mexico, what would you do right now? I'm like, well, you're sitting right next to me, so can you just tell me? And she'd be like, no, you have to figure it out. So I think that mentality really helped me just dive in, figure something out. She let me make the mistakes, corrected me after, and then it just grew substantially from there.
So as a team leader and as a high driver personality, which she is, and I know that Christy did this for a number of reasons. One is her whole, I'm talking to you like you're not there, Christy, but your whole thing was you wanted to take care of those boys, which incidentally are adorable. And you wanted to have a life because you were just working all the time, and you talked about that. So tell us about early, before you got Samantha really in gear and got the team going. You had some real stress with that.
Absolutely. Single mom, 2 young boys. Samantha actually started out as my babysitter when they were about 5 and 7. Okay, so then she wanted to interview for the job. It was tough. Dad was nowhere in the picture. I have not a support system, no parents, grandparents, really. So it was me and hiring babysitters to babysit my kids in the evenings, weekends, a whole list that I could call at the spur of the moment and get them to baseball, football, all their activities, and show houses. So it was tough years, very tough years. But with Samantha, always being willing to not just be my assistant at work, she was the boys' backup emergency contact as well. We worked well together in all aspects.
So that really gave you some permission to attend their games and to at least be involved in their lives in a way that you wanted to be. And Samantha, you are so gifted with being able to organize. You have this linear brain that most of us would love to have just a tiny piece of. You knew you had to scale up as Christy started to grow. What was your secret sauce? What was your ability to do that? How did you two manage to have it communicated and then executed?
So one of my favorite tools is a tool that we learned through Workman Success Systems is Agile. I think a lot of people cringe when they hear that word.
Yes.
I happen to love it. So I think with Christy and I, we would sit down. She knew the big picture and what she wanted, but stopping long enough to do the details was not exactly what she had time for or interest in. I happen to love the details. So we would sit every day and do essentially a data dump, so to speak. And we would go over all the topics. I would take them, map them all out, and then we would figure out how to launch them. And with Agile, that was a huge help with all of that.
Well, I would say that this speaks to a process of operational excellence. And so you had to have a couple of mistakes in the beginning. What were some of the biggest that if you only knew then what you know now, you would have avoided?
I would definitely say pushing back. I was the worst at pushing back when we started with the new CRM, when our coach for Workman said, you need to be using this particular CRM. I thought I had a much better way. And so we switched, and very quickly we realized that was not a good idea. So we went back to it with an open mind and never looked back.
Isn't that terrific? So one of the things, though, that we talked about in our earlier segment was the communication that has to happen from a team. And so often a lot of people have a bias or a standardization that if you're the team leader, everybody just does their thing. And in fact, the team has some amazing core values. And Christy mentioned that you speak them because they become part of the DNA of this team. So tell us a little bit about the huddles and the accountability. What do they look like? Well, we talked about what they look like, but how do you get everybody to stay on that same level of integrity and commitment. I know you start by using a DISC, which is a behavioral interviewing system to be sure they're a fit. But you have an actual system with the team. Can you explain that just a little bit?
Of course. So every morning we meet in the morning for huddles. It's non-negotiable on our team. So everyone comes in, we talk about our core values, and we don't just say them, but we will actually say, what are you doing to be optimistic today? What are you doing to be a person of action? Or on the flip side, where are you struggling to be optimistic so that we can help you? I think we're very transparent on we're not perfect. So let's talk about it. And we are here as a family, not just as coworkers together. And we're talking about what we did the day before. What are we doing today? What are the admin doing? What do they need Christy and I to be helping them with? We're just very open and honest with each other, which I think is huge for our team.
Well, I've actually witnessed one of those huddles, and that actually came into, you've done such an exquisite job of operational excellence, Christy and Samantha, that you've actually developed processes in place that became an event for Workman Success called the 7-Figure Ride Along. Can you just give us a little overview on that, Christy?
Sure. So as we grew and started growing our team and became, I would say, pretty exceptional with our systems and processes, we had many people requesting to come in and spend a day with us at our office, which is difficult because they couldn't get into every department to see what they needed, what I felt like they needed to see. And it stopped us for a day or two, which is hard for us to catch up. So we created a 2.5-day conference that we hold twice a year, and people just fly in from everywhere. We help them with hotel arrangements, and they just come spend 2 days at our office, and we go over everything that we've done from start to finish. So what I think it really does is helps people see the end goal. When you're in coaching and you're getting 45-minute to-dos every 2 weeks, I think you can get on a little bit of, am I getting anywhere? Is this working? So when you see that, and I don't want to say the end result because we're never finished, but when you see what the next couple of years goal is in action, then it just helps you really bring the everything to light on, yes, this is what we need to keep doing and how to do it. So we go through every system, every process, marketing, just what we do in this company start to finish to just have it run like a well-oiled machine.
So this is a paid event because it is 2.5 days, and you have this at your offices. Is that correct?
Correct. It's at our office.
Yeah. So it's really, and I actually have the workbook from the last one I got to go to, and it's extremely well detailed, but it's very personal. And if you're watching this and you're thinking you can do this all alone, today's consumers have such a strong consumer demand. There's no way for you to be an expert at everything. I like to use the analogy of if you're doing a Broadway show, you can't be on stage selling the popcorn, selling the tickets, and cleaning up. You have to do one or the other. And so you've managed to do that. But there are just issues. If I was watching this, I'd say, now just wait a minute. All right, so I have kids and one of them got sick, or the water heater broke. And how do you handle those bad days, those HR issues with that much of a team when you're very busy listing and selling?
So we built, so as you grow as a team leader, we realize that there has to be barriers between the team leader and all of the issues with 28 people. So our sales manager is the first go-to. We do have a sales manager. I don't think I mentioned that earlier. So if it's a contract problem, something in that department, they go to Susan. If they can't figure it out, it goes to Samantha. When Samantha needs me, she pulls me in. So we have a lot of barriers between me and them. I always have an open door. They can always come to me. But when you're buying your life back and growing your team and you want your evenings, your weekends, in the beginning, it seems like we traded it from being clients to being agents, issues and problems. So that's when I say we're never done coaching and growing and learning, is when we learned that we need to build barriers between where do you go, what's the proper chain of command, and then when it gets to me, it's pretty important that I address it. So that's worked out very well for us. We have plenty of barriers between me, Samantha, and other team members.
And Samantha, I know that you're the point person on if somebody isn't doing their job. As an example, one of the things that you brought up that I had never thought about was, we think that our agents are following up and maybe they've only made an email and a phone call and then it's kind of like done because they got distracted. You do a terrific job. What happens when somebody is not performing to the core values and the expectations of the contractual agreement for them to be on your team? What happens?
So we have every 2 weeks, we do one-on-one accountability meetings with all of our team members. And then every quarter we sit down and do a quarterly review. But if for some reason in that 2-week time frame, something comes up, there's an issue, Susan and I are watching numbers constantly. How many leads each agent's getting, what their production, are they hitting their goals each day that they've committed to? And if they're not, we usually, both of us, reach out to them and just have a meeting with them, call them in our office. We first start and just say, what's going on? Are there factors in your personal life, like a sick child, things going on that we can help you with? And if so, we step in other team members to do that. If not, we just sit and we build a plan and come up with kind of a plan to get them back on track. Now, if it's, an issue with our core values, we've learned in the past to, hire slowly, release quickly. We're huge on our core values. So if it's something like that, we would handle it a bit more intense than we would if it's just a personal issue at home we need to help them with.
Yeah, a lot of people, especially team leaders, if they're on this side of the grid where they're high adaptability, it's different to have confrontation. What we found though with Workman Success Systems is that because there's contractual, everything's in writing, everything's measurable, you guys go really all the way through with the quarterly reviews and everything. I mean, that is such an extensive hands-on process for building a team. It's no wonder that your team is doing so well. So if you had a recommendation to anybody watching this or listening to it, building a team and putting the right people in the seats on the bus, what would you say?
I would say, for team leaders is hire that admin day one. And I know Christy touched on that a little bit ago earlier, is find the right admin, hire slowly, know who you're looking for, hire them, develop them, and then, inspect what you expect. Every day when you're talking to the team and they give you a goal, you give them a goal, is we have to go back and we have to follow up. We've learned that the hard way is we assume somebody's just going to do it because that's our mindset, but that's not always the case. So we have to go back, see what they're doing, and getting that team leader out of that seat and having someone else that can do that and the team trust. And I think that's going to help them a lot.
And I would add, Terry, that we do our very best to lead with love and not dictatorship. So when somebody is struggling and their leads aren't being taken care of, our first thing is, how can we help you? Can we make some calls for you? And we're going to pause you on leads. But when you make things about you, it comes off much different than making it about them. And truly it is about them. It affects us, but why are you so far behind? What's going on? Can I help you? I'm going to go ahead and pause you so that you don't get farther behind. I don't want you to feel more stressed and get more leads that you feel more stressed that you're farther behind, rather than I'm paying for these leads, you're not working them, you're failing us, you're failing your team members, because that doesn't always bring the same result as I don't want you to get more stressed. So I think that leading with love until it's too late, till we just realize it's a personal, they're just not going to do the work, then that's a different conversation.
And that just speaks to your core values. I know that, Christy, you have a huge heart, because we're going to talk a little bit about your give back and your community visibility and your marketing, which is how Christy Bucks speaks to her brand in the community, which, by the way, is ginormous. Again, how would they contact you if somebody wanted to interview you or send your team a referral? What's the best way to reach you?
Christy at our email, Christy, CHRISTY, at Christy Buck, BUCK, team.com, or my direct number is 517-8414. And Samantha's direct number is 832-549-3387.
Well, thanks for joining us. And we're going to hear more from Christy and Samantha, so stick with us. We'll be right back. I'm Terry Murphy for Realty Times Women in Business, and specifically today, spectacular women in real estate.